Distinct Kusai.
I'm Jukebox Hero.
I'm Scufflewick, and I'm the pretty one.
So Scufflewick, you do cosplay, I hear.
Yeah, so
What's your cosplay?
My cosplay is it's a character called Canada Camo. I wear a ghillie suit and quite often jump in or now stand by bushes because I'm not allowed to stand in them anymore. What I used to do is stand in the bushes and then just kind of like pop out and be like, hello, and scare the hell out of people. So I've done that 5 years now, I think. And I'm apparently fairly memorable because I was actually invited to do a into the cosplay contest, and then also to apply for a panel. So I did an application for a panel, which was basically how to develop a character and bring them to life, how to survive various aspects of cosplay, and just kind of general, like, my experiences in cosplaying, specifically with weapons policies. So it was fairly decent. I was surprised when I got approved for the panel because as far as I think, I'm kind of just like a no-name guy that people have seen around. Like I'm by no means a notable cosplayer or anything, but I was apparently approved for the panel, so that was quite exciting.
Now, it's also my understanding and experience that this is not your first time talking at a panel, though.
Yeah, so you were actually with me when this happened, but years ago, actually I think it was the first day that I ever did wear this cosplay suit. The first day we actually went to an expo. Years ago I was wearing a ghillie suit, and there was, I believe it was Burt Ward and Adam West had canceled their appearance
just Adam
to the
West.
Calgary Expo.
Yeah.
Was it just Adam West? Okay.
Yeah, he had a back injury.
Oh, okay. So Adam West canceled his appearance to the Calgary Expo, and I don't remember her name, but Catwoman was set to appear in his stead. So she was taking over the panels, etc., etc. She was about 25 minutes late to a panel, which, if anyone's been to one of these panels, it's basically hundreds or thousands of people sitting in a room, all in chairs, facing one table, waiting for one person. It's a long time for people to wait. So I was bored. I got up. I kind of started talking to people, singing, dancing, doing what I do. And eventually I just got up onto the stage, went behind the tables, sat down and started talking into the microphone. And one of the expo guys was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, you said it was going to be another 15, so I'm going to keep the peace, keep people entertained." He's like, "Well, okay." A little while after I'd been talking, another person had come out, and they were like, "Sorry, you can't be up here." And I just kind of pointed over, and I was like, "Well, that guy said I could." One of the volunteers came in and said I couldn't. And I said, "Well, one of the staff said I could." Pointed over, waved, and the guy said, yeah, it's fine. So that was fine. But it was about 10, maybe 15 minutes I was talking to people just while we all waited for someone to come out. Eventually the staff came up to me and they said, "She's here." And I said, "All right, blah, blah, blah. Let's welcome..." Seriously can't remember her name. I'm terrible with names.
You did announce her properly, though.
I did actually do a proper announcement. And then I went back and I took my seat and we all enjoyed the panel. But yeah, that was my first unofficial panel that I should have been kicked out of.
Well, and I was surprised they did it.
I'm surprised you weren't.
And not only did they not kick you out, but they gave you the expos we usually go to have VIP seats at the front, and they gave you, me, your brother-in-law, and your brother all seats at the front.
Yeah, they bumped us all up to the front because I entertained everybody, which I think they know. Like, by the time she actually came out, we were like half hour late. And I think at that point they were just glad that no one was rioting. So I think it was kind of just a thank you for, like I said, keeping the peace and making sure people didn't go insane.
I think it would have been a bit more of a clusterfuck if it hadn't. And as far as a panel for somebody, that was actually a memorable one because you did that. And then afterwards, I believe because Adam West had missed it because he had a back injury that he is saying just before the panel, everybody, I believe, wrote a giant letter to a get well letter to Adam West after that. So
Nifty.
we weren't there for that. We had to leave just a couple minutes before the panel, and they did that near the end. But yeah.
Yeah. No,
Well,
it was kind of fun though. So like that was up until actually just this past week. That was my only experience having done anything. And then it came to a point where I just went onto my Facebook one day on my Facebook Pages app, I think. And I noticed I had a message in there, and it was actually two messages, one from a few months ago and then one just recently, saying, hey, we have this expo coming. We'd like you to be a cosplay contest contestant, and we'd like you to apply for a panel. And this was like months later, so I'm like, damn it, I totally missed it. But you know what? Let's send in, like, yeah, I'm totally, like, interested. Let's do this. So I applied for a panel as well. I applied for the costume contest, and the stipulation that I have, because it is a bit of a travel, was if I get the panel, I will guarantee attendance for the contest. If the panel doesn't go, then I really have to evaluate whether or not I can, because like I have to take time off work, I have to travel. It's a lot to actually get to some of these expos. So I ended up getting an email back a couple weeks ago, and it was like, yeah, confirmed. You have the panel, you have the costume contest, we're all good to go. And it was a lady, Dusty Ann Evans, I think her name was, who I was dealing with. She also set up photo ops for some of the people who, unfortunately, because of the weather, there was actually almost nobody there when I was doing the photo op right at the beginning of the day. But I said, like, yeah, I'll make the Saturday. I can't stay any later than that, unfortunately, but like let's set this up. So I actually got a photo op, costume contest, and my panel all in that one day, and it was all organized within, like I said, like 2 or 3 weeks total time to get everything straight and going. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Now, I won't lie. I will say, considering you're in a costume contest for this, and that the panel a little less surprising, but I'm surprised you actually stuck with it this long for 5 years, and I'm surprised you've been accepted as a cosplayer, and as many cons as you've been to. Mostly because I was surprised people weren't picking it apart that you didn't make your costume, that it wasn't a character originally, like a. So I thought people would pick you apart, but they seem to have really actually accepted you right from the get-go.
Yeah, so, and I think Adam Savage from Mythbusters really explains this well. There's...
What a strange reference.
What?
What a strange reference.
What do you mean?
Fucking Adam Savage from Mythbusters?
So Adam Savage is actually
That's like
a
out of
cosplayer.
left field.
No, a lot of people don't realize this, but Adam Savage from Mythbusters is a cosplayer. And what he does is he comes up with costumes that he can maintain anonymity. He goes to San Diego Comic-Con, and after the convention, he will reveal who he was. Otherwise, people have to try and figure it out. But Adam Savage had a TED Talk about cosplay and why he loves cosplay. And he explained it really well, saying that there is costuming, the construction of a costume. There is cosplay, where you actually, like, wear the character and bring it to life. And then, obviously, there's modeling, and there's other things that you can do, like modeling someone else's costume, etc., etc. What I do, like you mentioned, I did not build my outfits. I have multiples of the same, essentially what is a character, although that character doesn't exist anywhere outside of the expos. That character is not from a TV show or a movie or a game or a comic. That character lives within the environment of the expos as an attendee and as someone who interacts with the others there. Adam Savage said one of the best things about cosplay is you can take your character, or you can make your character. You can become that character and then inject yourself not only into their own storylines or their own universe, but into the environment and into the community of cosplayers. There are interactions that people will have where he was No Face for his first cosplay. and No Face wants to make friends, so No Face gives out money. But when No Face gives out money, the people who receive it and the people that keep that money have bad luck come upon them. So he noticed he handed out a bunch of, they were just chocolate gold coins. He'd handed a bunch of them out, and he noticed somebody came up, grabbed his hand, put it back in. He can't see anything, so he didn't know what was happening. A little while later, somebody came up, grabbed his hand, put the coin back in, and on the third time this happened, he kind of like shifted his mask so he could see, and the person was just walking away, arms up in the air, like, nope, 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 not dealing with this, nope. And he realized that he wasn't just wearing a suit. He had become the character, and the people within the convention, the other attendees, recognized not him, but the character. They actually realized that having taken money from him, or having taken these chocolate gold coins, was bad luck within his universe. And so they recognized that, and they played along with it. Not dressed up, just attendees. They weren't cosplaying, they weren't any, they were just people who had taken photos, gotten a coin, realized, that's bad luck, let's go give it back. And they played with the character. And that's where I think my character as Canada Camo has been accepted, is he doesn't have to be from something specific. He doesn't have to have his own known universe. He just has to be. He has to interact with the other people on both a personal level, like person to person, as well as to their character. If I go in and I see Lana from Archer, I will be walking around, Lana, 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 Lana! And if they turn around and yell, what? I've had a Lana cosplayer get annoyed that I did that. She's like, what do you want? Like, that's not funny, blah, blah, blah. And I sat there thinking, like, you're wearing a suit. You're not cosplaying, you're wearing a suit. Cosplaying brings it to life. If I see a Deadpool, I'm going to run up and tell him I want chimichangas. If I see Sailor Moon, I'm going to start singing Fighting Evil by Day, whatever it is. If I see Pokemon characters, then I'm going to start singing the Pokemon theme. I'm going to interact with them as a character. And if they choose to continue the conversation, we can converse as people. We can talk about our past experiences having met each other before. Because my costume is the same every year. There's little changes. I have upgrades to it. But I'm always me. I quite often don't realize the people I'm talking to are people that I've spoken to before in different outfits. So they say, like, oh yeah, I'm this guy. The Fallout guys. They're one that I've spoken to quite a few times in conventions. The one guy was a Halo Marine. And I remember that suit. I didn't connect the Halo Marine to the Fallout guy suit, but as soon as he said, I was like, yeah, man, what's up? Like, and then we had lunch together. Nobody has seen my face at a convention.
Well, except me.
Well, I mean, obviously you guys have, because we know each other personally, but nobody at a convention has seen my face. And it wasn't until actually just yesterday that I'd actually associated my face with the suit at all. We went to a restaurant and I'd taken everything off except for the pants, the belt, and the drop leg holsters. So people actually got to see my face. And I just said, like, the only thing I ask is if there are any photos, don't associate my face to Canada Camo. Because I am Canada Camo when I'm at the expos.
But you're separate.
Yeah, when I'm at the expos, I am Canada Camo. When I'm outside of, I'm not. So it's interesting just to see how the people interact with one another.
Well, I think it's a good thing. The only reason why I was worried at first is because, like, some professional cosplayers have caught flack for, like, not even making their costumes, even though their costumes are actually even referenced to a character. Like, Jessica Negri's caught flack for not actually making all of her costumes.
Which,
even if she openly admits that she hasn't.
And Jessica Negri is an interesting example, because Jessica Negri falls into multiple categories. Jessica is absolutely a cosplayer. She takes costumes and brings the character to life. Her Supersonico, she is so in love with that character, and she's cosplayed that character. She has created costumes for that character. She is so much that character that she actually did the voice acting for Supersonico. There is Battleborn, which I believe she's both made and worn other people's costumes for Battleborn, as far as the game advertisements. So Jessica not only falls in as a cosplayer, bringing the characters to life, which is what I do. I am a cosplayer. Jessica is also a costumer in the fact that she builds the costumes. She's also a model in the fact that she wears costumes built to be shown off. She falls into so many different categories that it's hard to give her shit as a cosplayer for not having made all her costumes, because she's so much more than just a cosplayer. So
Yeah, I think it's like, there's different groups, because some people are a little more finicky and about what their definition of those things are, and some people are a little more open than
you know
others.
what? It's very easy. A model wears a costume that they're told to wear to make it look good. A cosplayer brings a character to life. A costumer makes a costume.
And some people are even a little more finicky on, like, if it's cosplay, if the quality isn't up there. You know, for me, as long as somebody's even like made a costume, it's fine. Yeah, like if somebody made their stuff from like plastic bags and stuff,
I've seen a
stuff
kid,
like that.
just a young kid, but this kid was so proud of his costume. It was an Iron Man costume made out of cardboard. It was cut, it was glued, it was, I think, spray painted or painted. I don't even know. I don't care. This kid came in an Iron Man costume. He walked up to me, we high-fived each other, and for our pose, when he wanted a picture with me, he took his hand, pointed at me, and was shooting Iron Man's, like, palm energy beam things. That's the character. He brought Iron Man to life. And whether or not this kid made the costume on his own, or if he had a bit of help from his parents, like, you could tell it was definitely a homemade costume. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no. And you have to start somewhere, you know? Like, practice makes perfect. You have to start somewhere.
Not only that, but I love the fact that this kid liked a character and became the character. That is cosplay. As far as I'm concerned, he is more of a cosplayer, having done that, than some of these, like, top dogs who
they
would
walk in,
throw
they don't
him
know the
otherwise.
character. Well, you know, like, and that's my thing. Like, I don't know, like, some people get paid to, and to cosplay, and it's like, and that's where I draw the line. I'm like, that kid's better than, I would say, somebody who's been paid to put a costume on, has no clue who they're representing. And
I disagree for the fact that person is then a model. That person's not a cosplayer.
As a model, but then
if they're marketed,
but then they tried
as
saying that they're cosplaying, and I'm like, yeah, because at that point they're not cosplaying; they're modeling,
right,
a costume for somebody,
right. And in that case, that kid is more of a cosplayer.
Well, I know,
playing the character than the model is a cosplayer. But that being said, that model is still within the community. Now, they may not know that specific character, but they may know, and they may have actually cosplayed plenty of other characters. The people that I have a real issue with are the people that come in and they're like, I made this costume all by myself. I know everything about this character. Your jokes aren't funny. I'm not going to interact with anybody here. I'm just going to show off and da-da-da-da. That's not what this is about. My favorite part about the expos is the community. The fact that we can walk up and go, dude, that is an awesome costume. Man, that must suck to wear. Oh, I am sweating balls in this thing. You know what? The fact that we can have those interactions, laugh. I don't charge for photos with me. I don't want money. And actually, the photographer who set up the photo opportunities, I had quite a discussion with them, because she charges for photographs, and I was at that time a model for her photo opportunities. And I was very specific that I do not want photos of me charged for. Can I rent you? Can I like pay for your time? Can I do something so that others don't have to pay? Because I'm absolutely not well enough known to charge for photos, but I also don't believe in it. If somebody wants to come up to me and take a photo with me, absolutely. The only thing I say is a photograph with me costs a hug. Because everyone there is friendly. We're all there to have a good time. Give me a hug.
And that's fair, you know what I mean?
And take a photo.
And, you know, I have issues with some people, even with the well-known people, charge, I think, sometimes too much. It's like, compared to even people that are above them or not. Like, I get that you have to pay the people and everything, that the more famous people, like, you hug, and I get why the photographer is charging, because she needs to
she's got to pay for her time. I totally get that. She's got expensive equipment. She's got expensive, like, I totally get, and I told her, like, I understand why you want to charge. Can I pay it? I just don't want people to pay for photos with me. Can I pay in their stead?
See, the only time I have an issue paying is when I go to a convention and I see somebody who I know is famous, and they're like charging, like the guy beside them who's from the same show is charging like $50, but the guy next to him from the same show is charging like $150, $200 for a photo shoot. And it's like,
you know,
how do you justify
if you've reached that celebrity status, you charge whatever you want, but keep in mind, people are only going to pay as much as they think you're worth. Yeah. If somebody is worth $100, they will charge $100. They're going to piss people off, but people will still pay if they think it's worth it. The guy that's charging $50, people are going to go back to. People are going to go get photos with them again, even though it's
want to talk to them and do stuff. Yeah,
because it's not like, oh fuck, I got to pay a shit. Well, is he worth? Like, had we all known that Carrie Fisher was going to pass away,
we all would have got photos with her last time.
People would have gotten photos. People would have paid quadruple, like $400-$500. People would have paid. Now she was taken away, and I mean, obviously, like it's sad and everything, but the point here is, like, people will only pay what they think it's worth. Now you can charge as much as you want to. People will either pay or they won't. Now, if you charge less, then people are going to remember that. They're going to like you more, and you're going to become more valuable than the person charging more than they are worth.
Yeah, and that's my where my issue is because, like, I feel like, do you actually feel like what's your reasoning behind thinking that you can charge that much, and like, is it actually good for you? Well, like, I would totally, if you even, like, one guy, I really wanted to see him, and even if he had charged like $50 less than he was asking, I probably would have gone and done the photo shoot.
Yeah,
but like, it was like so much that I couldn't even afford it at all, and it's like, well,
and that's why
I can't.
People will pay what they think it's worth. You said to you would have probably paid $50 less. Now, I don't know what they were charging. It was probably stupidly ridiculous.
Yeah,
but that's the thing, is like, I am in no way able to charge. We have
a business guy here on the show, Jukebox. You still there?
Yeah, I'm playing Pokemon.
So quietly. Let me ask you, for you, what's your opinion on finding a balance for selling a product? Like, you don't want to you don't want to have your prices too high, but you don't want to have them too low. Like, how in something like for a photo shoot at a convention, like, what's your opinion on like if they're charging too much or too little, or where do you think is like a happy mean? Like what's the benefits of not charging too much but not charging too little?
Well, first, I think you need to know your market. Like, the people who you think will come to get photos with you. If you're at a celebrity status, your market's much larger, and that will reach out to people with more money. If someone's overcharging, I mean, that's the same as overcharging for literally anything. Like, how do I put this?
Well, I can jump in on that, actually. I am an IT guy. I deliver pizza, I do IT. My background is much, much, much larger than that. But I am an IT guy. And so on Facebook, I will quite often see, oh, I need blah, 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 blah. And if I can help somebody online and just like, yeah, do this, done. Now, if I can't help someone online, I have a specific procedure that fixes most issues if they have just fucked their PC up royally. You back everything up. You wipe the computer. You reinstall Windows, you restore everything, update all your drivers, da-da-da-da-da. If they have their software installation media and product keys ready, I'll install those as well. I charge $150 Canadian for that. Now, if it's something aside from that, I mean, that fixes most everything. If it's something aside from that and I have to sit and grind out what I'm doing, I charge $100 an hour. Now, that seems like a lot of money. As a professional IT guy, it kind of makes sense because it's a trade. Now, plumbers pay $95 to $100 an hour. Or, I'm sorry, plumbers charge $95 to $100 an hour. And that's just what the cost is for that trade. Electricians are probably about the same as that. It's just what it costs.
Well, and yeah,
Where are you going
it's the
with
same
this?
for anything.
Well,
I'm just saying
yeah.
it's the same for anything where $35 to $100 is just what it costs. Now, if you're gonna take a hell of a photo, I'm talking like, who is it that he like picks people up, flips them upside down, and they take photos
I
and
know
like here, there,
he
and
was on Torchwood. And are you talking about the guy that was on Torchwood or the guy who was on Supernatural? Like,
oh, I don't remember. I
Misha
haven't
Collins
seen either
or-
of those shows. But like, he takes such good photos. For that, I would pay extra, as opposed to paying for someone who just sits there and smiles. And I think that's where you have to find not only your supply and demand. There is only one of you. There is thousands of people that want photos with you. You also have to take into consideration the total cost, the average cost of people doing similar. So the other photo ops, what their cost is, and whether or not you think yours is more or less in demand than theirs. If you are more in demand than the average photo op, charge more. And it just so happens that the going rates are $50 to $100.
Well, that's what I mean when I consider somebody overcharged. If I go
Hold
and
on.
everybody else is charging $100, then
I had a point that I was going to get to. You guys keep saying, someone's overcharging or someone's undercharging. I have to make the assumption that they've done enough research or enough photo ops to a point where they've determined that price will get them the most money or the most people or a mixture of the two. So if you're saying they're overcharging, you may no longer be within that bracket of people that they're marketing towards.
well, and I get that. Like, but I would say most of the time I don't see anybody overcharging at a con except for a couple people. And what I base overcharging is if they're sitting there at, say, like the Edmonton Expo here in Alberta, and they're charging significantly more than everybody else around them, and they have nobody in their lineup.
Well,
the whole day, the
and
whole time they're at that
point,
expo.
they've just failed.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
that
but
point, I will agree. That is overcharging.
But if you go up to Stan Lee and he wants $250 for a photo, and you're like, oh man, that's too much. I'd only pay $100. Well, the people in line are like, yeah. But 250 is within my range, and that's what I would pay, even if he's just sitting there.
Oh, that's my point. There's some people and that's exactly what I mean. Like, you have to find this sweet spot, I think, where you're not charging so little that you're not making any money. You're not even making bare minimum. You're not charging so much that nobody's showing up.
A lot of this just comes from straight.
Sorry.
Oh man, you made me lose thought. A lot of that comes from experience. You have to reach a point where you've experimented enough. A lot of times, if someone's really famous, they'll go through an agency, and then the agency demands. So, if you got a person sitting there who's charging $100, and everyone thinks they're only worth at least $50, so they have no one in their lineup, that actually sometimes is just a failure of the agency because that's what they demand in the contract.
A lot of time, they don't set their own prices. And actually, you mentioned that somebody was charging, and had they charged $50 less, was their lineup full?
The one who charged $50, their lineup was full, and the guy next to him, who I thought was overcharging, almost had nobody in his lineup.
Did he have people in his? Did he have idle time, or did he always have a small lineup?
Idle time. I think people showed up just before his photo shoot was starting, and then as far as I saw that whole weekend, he maybe got 5 people.
Okay, in that case, then yes. But if we're talking where he's got a constant lineup of 5 people waiting, it doesn't matter how long the lineup is. He is constantly making use of his time. And in that case, I think that is the perfect sweet spot.
Yeah, and like some of this is like opinion. Like if I like everybody's willing to pay. If nobody's willing to pay more than that, you might be worth that. You might think you're worth that, but if it's opinion whether people think you're worth that, right? So,
yeah. Well, and that's kind of where, yeah, like I can relate that to IT again, where I've had people say, no, you're too much, and I say, okay, well, let me know if you change your mind. Or I've had people say, please, can I call you again? And this is after them having just signed an X $100 check. Like, I've walked out of places making more in a couple of hours than I have made in a week doing my other job. Well, and people, please, can I call you again? At that point is where worth or value, there's not really a definitive way to define that, because it's a subjective matter, right?
Well, yeah, and even then, like even when I've paid, and like this is something you guys can talk about, like going to cons, like I've paid for an experience that I thought was worth it when I was going in, and like to meet somebody or have something signed, and like I get there and it's like totally not what I was expecting. Like it's almost like this has happened very few times where I've walked up to somebody for a signing and to get a handshake like you normally do at those things, and like it's like the guy didn't even want to be there, so now I was like, well, other than I'm getting your signature, this didn't seem like it was worth it.
So how about the convention that we just went to, the Red Deer Pop Culture and Cosplay Extravaganza? When you went to that, you paid. When I went, like we went together, but you paid at the door and I was invited as a guest. For me, that day was worth the expenses. I mean, obviously I had other expenses, including like food, travel, blah, 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 blah. For me, that day was very worth it in what I'm taking out of it. But for you, knowing what that expo was, would you go again knowing that that was $20?
Well, considering this is the first year this pop culture thing was going on, pop culture show, and my experience with other startups and its location, yeah, I would go back in, because I'm assuming by next year it'll be bigger. By the next year after, it'll get bigger.
No. I mean, like, if you could go back in time 2 days, and ignoring the fact that obviously I dragged you there, if you could go back in time, know exactly what that expo was about to be, would you pay the money again?
If I were to grade it on what I know about the con, I think they probably done it on what they need to, but considering the amount of vendors that were there and the amount of panels I got, so I would have said maybe $5 less would have been fair. But in hindsight, like
so if you bought online,
$20.
If you bought online, it was $15. So I think the price there was definitely in line. You mentioned
so $15 I would have been fair.
Yeah,
for even at the door.
You mentioned that it being their first panel, da. Now, obviously, my opinion is slightly biased, although I'm very careful to not be subjective when I'm making opinions. I think they did a great job as a first year.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. They did a good job as a first year.
I am excited to see what they can grow into. I absolutely hope I get invited back again as a guest. But I think what they did was a fantastic start.
Well, and realistic. He didn't like rent something too big. He rented almost exactly the space he needed for.
They had one empty booth from what I saw. Booth number 13 was empty. So
see, what I don't want,
he was sweet spot.
What I don't want to see when I go to a first year of a fair, and I'm pretty lenient on what I consider, because I've been to a few of them, like first time pop culture fairs and
giant place, no booths.
Yeah, when they like rent, like they get this big expensive thing, we'll rent this every year and it'll build. Well, yeah, but your first year you had almost nothing there, and because you rented a bigger, more expensive venue, it was more to cover your costs for the admissions, to cover your guys' costs for renting the place, but there was nothing there.
So the Red Deer Expo, as part of the Alberta Expos, the big ones, whatever, they went broke. They were actually expecting to use the Vancouver Expo to float the Red Deer Expo financially. And this is all my understanding from what I've been told. But they rented the bigger building across the parking lot there. We were in the smaller of the two. And the bigger building is X number of $1,000 a day for their first year. And they didn't have huge names, but they still charged decent prices. So I think that's kind of where you're getting at, is like, they went way too big, couldn't fulfill what they were planning, and then they flopped. And there is no 2017 Red Deer Expo.
Well, yeah, because they didn't set it up properly.
Because they failed that hard. Whereas with this expo, they did nice. They found that balance.
Now, before we go too far, I want to know what you got. We touched on what I think is what I want to see and don't want to see at a first year expo. Scufflewick and Jukebox, what do you want to see and don't want to see at a first year expo or a convention?
Jukebox, go ahead.
I mean, I just want to see space being used efficiently. And that all comes down to the organizers and the planners. So, like, it's really, really easy to lose money on a con or an expo. And from a different podcast I listened to, the guys actually formed a retro gaming expo in Portland, Oregon. Or maybe it was Arizona. I don't remember. But, like, it took, like, 2 years of planning. Like, you gotta, like, be on top of that. You gotta have people who are good at administrative work to actually book people in and make sure they stay and make sure they come. And then you got to balance what your expenses are going to be for getting them there. You got to like haggle with people and stuff. So if I go to an expo and there's a lot of empty space, unless they got a really good deal on the space to begin with, I just assume that it's not going to be good because they aren't doing their work.
Bad planning. Yeah.
And yeah, to me, when they see that means that it's probably not going to grow either because, well, if this is how bad they're planning the first year, like I get their stumbles in the first year, but this doesn't look good for proper planning the next year either, if there even is a next year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than that...
Now, what about for you, Scufflewick?
Other than that, I would just hope that the people that they do get are... I mean, relatively good. Like, you don't have to be known, but if you're entertaining as far as, like, panel guests and stuff go, or if you're some small mom and pop shop, but you have decent prices or something at your booth, then it's all good. Because I was at the, I don't remember what it's called, but it's really small in Edmonton, and it's actually a record fair, and it fills up about a high school gymnasium type room, and... I go there, I run to like a single booth because they have metal records, which are rare at a good price. Everything else in that whole place is fucking overpriced. Like, it became such a ridiculous thing that we just stopped going. And it's...
Yeah, that's the problem. Something that when I go to how about we use this as a segue? You guys, whenever you go to a con, it's not just the cosplay. It's the vendors as well, and a lot of times they're selling collectibles. Yeah,
and for me, it's mostly
and it's like because they, and same for me. Like I go for the panels and I go for the cosplay is a secondary thing to going to the vendors and the panels for me.
And see, for me, I'm kind of the opposite. Like the reason I go to these is, I mean, obviously, yeah, you can buy some cool stuff. I'm broke. Sorry, I'm gonna look. I'm going to touch it. I might even lick something. But I can't afford to buy half the shit there.
Well, things are ridiculously priced anyways. We have a video game store in Edmonton. When it comes time for the expos in Edmonton or Calgary, because they go to both of those, the big ones, they will pretty much clear out about 40% of their inventory. So if you go to the store, there's nothing there. And once they get to that expo, they price everything up about 30%. Like...
Does it sell?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, the stuff they sell, I'm going to say again, is not overpriced.
Well, so you know how you always say there's some stupid sucker that'll buy it for that price? There's a lot of stupid suckers at expos.
But if you can find those suckers, make that money. I have no issues with somebody charging as much as they want if they're able to sell it. Because if they are able to sell it, at least to the person who bought it, it's worth it.
I have an issue with it because I get that they're able to sell it to somebody, but my issue is then afterwards it sets a precedent for other people seeing those prices, thinking that's the actual price of what it's worth, and then they try selling. Oh yeah, I'll go try selling mine for that price, and finding out
I
they're
live
never going to get that price.
in like a
Not
secondary
always.
market, and it happens quite frequently. It's just a huge bummer.
Yeah. It doesn't always happen, though, because if you look on PCPartPicker.com, it will compare the prices of older hardware, and I'll quite often go on there to find the price of what hardware should be worth. Now, I have my own calculations that I do on top of that, but if you find old hardware, it's probably on Amazon, and it's probably 3 times MSRP, because some guy's like, hey, I can charge this much. Whatever. Now, what you have to realize is ignore the variable charges. Focus on what the average pricing is, what it's actually sold for. A lot of people will just search eBay for a price, or they'll just search Amazon or Craigslist or Kijiji, and they'll nail that. But the people that are actually smart are going to see what it is sold for, and that's the target they're going to go for.
Yeah. I mean, you could hope.
So what I'm looking for in the expos is a little bit different than what you guys are looking for. Like, Jukebox, as a collector, you want vendors. And Kasai, as I'd say a bit of a collector, a bit of a fan, you're kind of an all-arounder. You're looking for the panels, you're looking for vendors, you're looking for the cosplay. Whereas for me, as a cosplayer, my biggest concern is what makes an expo good. What brings people to the expos is characters.
Fun and interactivity.
Now, obviously, you can obviously have big names. Awesome, super. We can also just Google that and find panels elsewhere. What I think really makes the expo as a whole is the interactivity on the floor. That being as an attendee, not during the panels, but when you're walking around. What really shines, because people aren't going to talk to just people usually. People will talk to cosplayers, though. So what I feel is, I'd say hugely important, as important, if not a little more important than the panels themselves, are the cosplayers. And how you want to keep those cosplayers. My biggest concern at these expos is how the cosplayers and vendors, because let's not forget about those guys, is how the cosplayers and vendors are treated.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you have people who have spent hundreds or thousands of hours of their own time on their own expense making these costumes that are not easy to wear. Inside my vest is over 45 degrees Celsius usually. They're not easy to wear. They're not comfortable. They're not, like, I can't pee in my suit.
I mean, you could.
No, you know what? Well, okay. For me to go pee,
God.
I have to go in, obviously, find a da-da-da-da-da. The only way that I can pee in my suit is because I have a drop leg holster on my right side. I took the one on my left side off.
Okay.
Now, this is partially to allow people who are with me to have a holster as well. So I specifically took that drop leg holster off of my left side for 2 reasons. Firstly, it lets whoever's with me have a prop or have more to their suit. Because those drop leg holsters, they're not super flashy, but they're a nice touch when you've got a gun and a pouch hanging down the side of your leg. It looks good. It looks tactical. It's also very helpful in the fact that it gives storage. They're pocket pouches with gun holsters on them. So it works well, too. But also because my left knee on the suit is ripped out. So for me to actually go pee, I have to go in, get the left knee of my suit, and bring that all the way up. Like, my leg my pant leg becomes short legs because I got to reef that all the way up just to be able to pee. It's not easy. Like, this is a small example. When my brother-in-law went as Megazord, it took 2 of us to get his helmet and shoulder pads off, like his body armor, because it's just difficult, cumbersome, awkward. It looks awesome. But the better something looks, probably the more of a pain in the ass it is, not only to make, but to actually use. So these people suffer through the day. And like, they put up with a lot to be able to get through there. Not only have they gone through personal hours to make the stuff, personal money to make the stuff, now they are paying you to go to your event. When those people get there, they shouldn't be looked down upon, turned away, said, no, you can't bring that in, because nah. I actually had somebody who seemed to have a personal issue and just kept rejecting.
I feel like I remember you telling me
I'd
this
bring the
before.
bag in. Yeah. I'd bring the bag in. She would turn to the person and be like, oh, I'll deal with him. She would open the bag. Nope. It got to the point where I had to print stuff off and actually, like, show her her own rules, because it just... Like, it was that bad. I actually had her call her... Yeah, I had her call the vice president of those expos, and he had to come and deal with me. Since then, I've had a team assigned to me. It's been fixed. And I've actually met this person personally outside of her being in that position. And you know what? She's fine. I think she was
Was she given too much power, or did she just not know the rules well enough?
I don't know if it was too much power, but the rules were written very vaguely. And so I think she was more or less following the book to the point where she is reading word for word, as opposed to putting a bit of logic into it. Now, word for word, the one rule in particular that was cited the most was, looks like a weapon in the dark at 25 feet. How dark are we talking? Who's looking at it? How well trained are they for knowing what's a weapon and what's not? Now, I have an emergency services background. I have been trained to be able to decipher what is dangerous and what is not. Now, this woman, like, I took my cell phone out, walked away, and said, what is this? She said, no. I walked up, and it was a cell phone. Now, at that point...
Fuck her.
Like, at that point, you have to... well, unfortunately, she was following the policies.
But, like...
It got to a point where something needed to happen. Fortunately, something did happen. And like I said, I met that person personally outside of her doing the checks. And she's super nice. I just think it was an unfortunate situation. But, like, you have to treat the people well. There was a Thor. The dude's costume was amazing. He was a bulky guy. Like, his face was not the same as Chris Hemsworth, but everything else was. And he had Mjolnir, the hammer, but his was made out of metal. Unfortunately, metal is a banned material for props. In that case, they had to turn him away. I understand that. And it sucks. It sucks so bad. But that's where cosplayers also have to take the initiative to go and find out what the rules are.
You know, the last convention I was at, they had a He-Man, and he almost got kicked out for like nudity type reasons, because you know that's practically like a loincloth and like a cotton piece.
Were his bits out?
But
like, I've seen conventions where
you got a little bit of ass cleavage, and that's where they were drawing the line with him.
Okay, pull up the loincloth.
Yeah.
Or make it so that you know it's going to be accepted. You don't have to show your ass.
He was wearing like briefs, and there's just the slightest line under the butt in the back, and they almost kicked him out on that.
Okay, at that point, that could be considered being overzealous. You have to treat these people nicely. You have to use logic and, most importantly, compassion. Now, with that Thor, I'm sorry, but You can only be
Yeah.
so compassionate. You can't bring it in. It's against the rules explicitly. Da 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 da. But when you're talking about my suit in particular is nothing if I
Right.
don't have props. Without guns, I'm a bush Wookie, is what I've been called quite
Perfect.
often. Well, think about it. You got nothing in your hands. You're big. You're hairy. What are you gonna do? What are you? The Ogopogo? So, fortunately, I have since gotten certain props where I know they are allowed. Period. Like it's fine.
This
It's
was a big
done.
part of your panel, wasn't it? Talking
Um,
about props and weapons and treatment as a cosplayer.
Not so much treatment of the cosplayer, but the props and weapons
Okay.
were definitely mentioned. But yeah, the whole thing is just like treat your people well, because those are the people who are going to entertain your attendees while they're not
Yeah.
at a panel. People are not going to pay $150 for a weekend to go see one
Yeah.
panel. Some people do, and I mean, you go
You
for
got
it.
the money.
You could also buy a single day for $40, but again, if that's worth it to you, you do what you do. People are not going to pay $150 just for one
Yeah.
panel. Now, what people will pay for is $150 for a weekend. 3 or 4 days of multiple hours where they can interact with a community of people who like what they like. Now, who are the people they're going to interact with? Vendors. Treat your vendors right. Don't mess with your vendors. And I don't know how they would, because I mean, you're a vendor, you rent a spot, and then you're allowed to bring your stuff in. I don't know how that could be messed up. I haven't been involved, so I'm sure there is
A lot of
something.
the times where there's issues with that is if the things brought in aren't as they thought they were. So, like, if you say, I am bringing pillows for sale, and the con goes, yeah, okay, great. And then it's the
naked lady
Dakimakuras with
pillows?
actual nudity. And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure those characters are underage. Then you get problems and stuff.
Okay, and again,
It-
at that point, that's where the
Yeah.
vendors need to say, hey, this could
And it's a
potentially be an issue.
miscommunication thing.
Do your research, fix it. It is, but I mean, you can only miscommunicate so far where it's like, yeah, I'm bringing pillows, but they're naked ladies, but I'm only going to say pillows. Like, at
But
that
I
point,
I
come on.
also think
you know
at that
it's
point,
probably
you
going
know,
to raise an
these
eyebrow.
pop culture places, they should know, because who the hell just brings pillows? Like, if you're talking to an anime vendor and they say, we're bringing pillows,
Yeah, but these...
you gotta have the idea to be like, what's
and
on
I don't
the pillows?
disagree with that. I don't disagree with you, but these guys also have 100, 200
I know.
vendors they're coming in. They need to read this list, yes. Read the list, yes. Read the list, yes. And, like, most of these people are volunteer. So it's difficult.
A lot of that goes back to what I
Um,
said. They have to have their planning and their admin down pat. And if it's not good, then everything else will
Yes.
not be good.
Absolutely. They also need the
Yeah.
vendors to work with them. And they need the cosplayers to work with them. I have spoken to cosplayers who have just straight up boycotted Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But I don't think that fixes anything. And I've met that cosplayer elsewhere, and, like, he's a cool guy. We hung
Cool.
out this weekend, and, like, it was a lot of fun. But at the same time, the cosplayers have to work with the expos just as much as the expos have to work with the cosplayers. I was one of the cosplayers that had issues, and instead of boycotting, I went to the expo and I said, who can I talk to? When can I talk to them? Let me set this down.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. We did. And this coming Calgary Expo, as I have heard, and I won't say specifically what's happened, but as I've heard from the expo, this coming expo has made changes that I have
Oh, cool.
recommended. And it's really going to open up. Basically, they tighten the language.
Oh, good.
It's going to open up the opportunity for cosplayers and what props they're allowed to have, while also being more clear for the volunteers who are reading the rules. Those volunteers maybe get 4 hours of
Yeah.
training, I would guess, and then they're like, hey,
Yeah.
have fun. Like, that's why when I go in, I just, hey, is the supervisor kicking around? Awesome. Or sorry, I used to. Now, again, I have a specific
know this
people that I
guy.
talk to. I can email them. Yeah, I can email them and say, I will be here at this time. The supervisors will be there and will be ready. I have 3 people I'm allowed to talk to in Saskatchewan,
Nice.
Calgary, Edmonton. Those 3 people are the only people that can or will approach me about props or activities. They're... Now, my thoughts with activities, because the character is...
Yeah.
fun. There are activities that obviously are disruptive. Some of those disruptive activities are enjoyed by the masses. When I am running up and down singing at the top of my lungs and people are singing with me, that is enjoyed. Now, when I am standing in a bush, jumping out, screaming, "Ah!" scaring the hell out of people.
It's a little less fun.
Most people enjoy that, but it's a little excessive. Now, the expos have come to me and said, listen, it wasn't appreciated by some people. There were some complaints. Let's tone it down. Okay, so I toned it down. Now it was boogity boo. It's not as aggressive. Again, okay, somebody has complained. Tone it down. It's gotten to the point where now I cannot stand in the bush. I have to stand outside of the bush. Totally fine. Let's not destroy the trees. And I will stand outside of the bush and say, hello. Now, this suit is damn good. People do not see me at 10 feet away when I'm standing against these trees. The ones that do will smile and be like, oh shit, he's here again. And they'll laugh and they'll joke, or they'll come up to me later and be like, I saw you. You didn't get me. When I do get people, and I mean, I'm not trying to scare the living hell out of somebody, but I mean, I want to give them a little hello.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
The bush was talking
that was
to
fun.
me.
The people appreciate it. And it's fun for everybody. I have had 60 people line up across the courtyard, videotaping and watching and laughing. And again, that's where the interactivity with the community comes, where people enjoy it. But there have been that 1 or 2 people that haven't and have ruined parts of it. Now, that being said, it was a little too aggressive. And that's where, as the character, my behaviors can grow or evolve or adapt to what's more suitable. Now it's to the point where, like, I like to have fun with it. There are reasons that I have been told I am not allowed to rappel off a 40-foot drop. I was wired in, ready to go, and I have professional training, and I have worked as a professional rope rescue technician. I am absolutely capable of doing this. Apparently, I'm not allowed to there.
Yeah.
That's fine. They've told me I'm not allowed to. I won't. There are reasons where I've been told I'm not allowed climbing 9 feet into a tree for people to come take photos. And they were totally cool about it. These new guys come up and they're like, dude, you're in the tree. I'm like, yep. And I hop down. And they're like, okay, don't climb the trees. But I said, okay, I understand what you're saying. I was 9 feet in the air. If I fall, potential injury, insurance, etc., etc. Can we come to a compromise? Can I go 5 feet in a tree where I don't need something to get in or out? If I can simply, like, shimmy up 5 feet into a tree, is that fine? And he said, you know what? That's cool. Awesome. That is where you're treating your cosplayers, the people who are bringing joy to your attendees. That's where you're treating them right. And that's what I really look for. Have a little give and take.
I think
work with people.
The big takeaway is be kind, have fun, be communicative, and just be a good person.
Yeah, just treat not only the attendees, but treat everybody right. If you treat everyone right, they'll
I think
have
that
a good time.
applies to pretty much everything.
Well, it does, but it's amazing how often people will forget that. But that is mine, and I think on that note, I am going to run away. So you two have fun talking. Good day, Jukebox, and good day, Kusai.
Farewell, Scufflewick.
Bye, Scufflewick.
So anyways, Distinct, when you were at that con, or that convention, you got to play the Switch, right?
Yes, I did. Oh, yes.
Please,
It was wonderful.
tell me everything.
So, while we were there, Scufflewick's brother-in-law had managed to buy a Nintendo Switch the night before,
Ooh.
right? And so he brought it knowing that he was going to be sitting there for a while and he was going to play it. What he didn't know is that I'd want to play with him, and he was totally up for it, though.
Oh,
so that was
good.
good. So we got to sit through and play all the games except for it was like 28 games. If I remember right. And
on
we
1-2
only,
Switch?
Yeah, on 1-2 Switch is what we were playing, and I think we only missed 4 of them. So we played like 24 of the 28 games.
Nice. So, did he get any other games, or was it just 1-2 Switch?
Just 1-2 Switch. He says by the time he got there was no copies of any of the games left other than 1-2 Switch. So.
Wow. Okay, so did you do the one where you roll the balls around?
Yes, that was the first one we started.
Tell me about the HD Rumble, because, I mean, besides the whole console and everything, that's what I'm most excited to feel.
Tell you the truth, I was actually impressed with that. Like I've used Rumble packs from when they first came out on consoles on all the way till now, and like some have been pretty good at using them, and like some of the newer ones are pretty good. So I was just like, this is just them saying it's going to be better than any other Rumble system that's out there. But no, it actually wasn't. I was even more surprised considering the size of the Rumble.
Yeah.
The controller. It's like that's a very small controller, and like if you've ever held like a PS4 controller or an Xbox, the motors and everything they use for that are actually fairly large, in my opinion, and especially now compared to the Switch.
Yeah. So, was it like a single motor, or was it multiple motors?
Well, I don't get a thing, but you can actually I don't know how they've constructed, but the size of the controller, it can't be that big inside of there.
So, like, when you're feeling the balls roll around, if you flip your controller upside down, do you feel the balls at the top? And then if you flip it around, do you feel them at the bottom?
Essentially.
So, yeah, I'd wonder if that's multiple tiny motors.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but it was impressive, and I could actually tell how many balls there were fairly accurate.
Yeah, see, I was talking about that, and I know you were comparing it to like the HTC Vive and their HD Rumble and whatever else. Is it similar? Is it better? Because I've never experienced any of those virtual reality ones you were talking about.
I would say it's very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of a good thing. It makes me wonder if who's taking whose cue. And you know what I mean? Like, are they seeing that people actually want this much in depth of sensory stuff, and they decide to develop it, or what prompted? Because like they didn't have to add a Rumble option like that on the Switch.
I still don't think they were necessarily taking cues from anyone, because my God, the gimmicks with the controller. But
yeah,
I think that even if it wasn't this advanced, they would have at least changed it. Because I remember when like the Xbox One was coming out, and they announced how they had Rumble in like the triggers, so everyone was kind of advancing, and I mean, they just made a natural progression.
Yeah, I like it, and a lot of the games were fun. There was one game we didn't try because it would involve us rehooking the controllers back up to the screen, and we didn't want to do that in the middle of the con and have to take them back off and walk around with it. They have this one game, and I can't remember what it's called, where you're basically comforting a baby.
Weird.
They also had those ones where it's called Runway, and you literally are putting the controller on the side and you're swishing your hips. You get marked on how well you're swishing your hips, and then a final pose.
Okay, that one's funny.
We didn't feel like doing that in the middle of a convention.
The one that I saw that I'd really like to experience is the one where you shake the soda bottle. Because apparently you can feel the bubbles and the fizzing.
Yes, you can. To me, though, it was a fun game, but they can call it whatever they want, but that was hot potato.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the people I was watching said. They're like, oh, this is like hot potato.
Not like, this is hot potato.
Well, yeah, minus the potato part. Imagine if the controllers could like heat up and cool down in your hands too.
Oh,
That'd
that'd
be
be
hell.
awesome. Honestly, I would love if they added a heat sense thing to a controller too. Like if your character was feeling something cold, the controller got cold, or vice versa. That would be amazing.
Be nice for immersion,
Yeah,
but I
actually.
feel at the same time you would run into so many problems with that.
Well, yeah, if you didn't set it up properly and protect the rest of the hardware, it might cause damage to the rest of the controller.
Interestingly enough, in Zelda they actually added a like temperature gauge. So like if you're standing near a fire, it's all like burning red or whatever, and if you're in the mountains, it's ice.
Does it affect your health?
Yeah, so near the we might have to put a spoiler warning.
Spoiler.
Near the start of the game, you have to go to 4 areas, and one of them is in the mountains where it is snowing. If you do not have something to keep you warm, whether it's food or clothing, after about 10 seconds, you will start losing a quarter of a heart at a time.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the pause screen, you can see Link like shivering.
So keeping with the Switch here, though, if you want to know some interesting things they did with the game, there's this one game where you're eating a sandwich, right?
Oh yeah,
And
I saw
both
that.
me and brother-in-law were trying to figure out how does this work, right? And our best guess is it's either using the mic or it's using the infrared on one side to tell whether your mouth's opening or closing, because you have to actually aim it at your mouth.
Well,
And
I don't know if it's only on one controller, but the controller has an IR camera in it.
Well,
So
they both do, 'cause
it can
I
detect
think-
how far and close something is, and it can detect different shapes. So if you have your
So I'm
mouth
thinking that
open,
must
it
be
can
it.
see into the back of your mouth, and then when it's closed, it's a shorter distance. So that's how
Yeah,
it
because
does
we weren't
that
sure
one.
if it was. We think it might be that, but we just wanted to make sure we don't know if for sure. So because like you also do make small sounds every time you open and close your mouth, and there is a mic on that end as well.
Yeah,
So
I still think it's the camera.
the tell you something. I was wondering if this controller was going to be kind of like weird to hold, or if it was going to be uncomfortable considering its size and shape. But it's actually probably one of the more comfortable controllers I've ever had from Nintendo.
Like when you hold them individually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've kind of been hearing that. A lot of
they
people were
fit
like,
perfectly,
when you play Zelda, hold them out at your side.
like perfectly.
Cause they are tiny. I mean,
I
I still feel like
whoever
if you're holding them sideways playing Mario Kart, it's going to be cramped, but like when they're in both of your hands, it's got to be nice.
Actually, tell you the truth, when you hold, because some of the games you do hold it sideways, it's actually still comfortable. I think whoever designed these was paying attention to very minimalistic. Where does thing need to be for it to be comfortable? Do we need physical stuff in between those points, right, to actually keep it comfortable? And I think they took all the unnecessary away. Because if you look on the back and around and you're holding it, everything fits. Everything touches perfectly in your hand, but there's not always stuff in between those points. They've took away a lot of the volume where it wasn't needed.
Oh, good. In a very recent Linus Tech Tips video I was just watching, they were saying when playing Zelda, because, that's a game where you need dual analogs, one for camera, one for moving, that it felt very awkward trying to support the tablet, like playing it in tablet mode, and have your thumb on each joystick. Like on the Wii gamepad, they're in line with each other at the top. On the Switch, they're staggered.
I don't think it would be an issue, to tell you the truth, considering I think it's just more of a getting used to it. Like,
Yeah.
when I first got an Xbox 360, it was considering that the one joystick was switched with the D-pad.
Yeah.
As far as like the layout comparison to a PlayStation controller, and it was so awkward for me, and it felt weird. But after playing the Xbox for a number of hours, it became almost natural.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find the exact same thing.
I think people will get used to it too. I was just wondering, because playing with the Wii U gamepad, it is fairly comfortable, and I could imagine if I had to have my thumb lower, it may be a bit more difficult to hold the tablet up for extended periods. but I don't think it's going to be a big issue.
No, I don't think anybody's going to complain about it, but I will point out they do something that they've that I thought was funny. It pops up a lot in the game where you're like in the 1-2 switch, where it's like, please have your controller firmly in your hand and the wrist strap on.
Oh yeah, did the console come with the wrist straps?
I did not ask him, but he did have them. So
Okay, I'll assume it does, because I totally forgot, because I looked at the bundle before, so I knew what it came with, and I forgot if it had the wrist straps, because when holding it sideways, that looks like it'll add a lot more comfort.
Yeah. My only complaint as far as the console goes is I don't think they have the option of just having straight black. So like the colors, like I like the neon pink and blue, like that the controllers come in, but it'd be nice if the console came out with also a plain.
Oh, it did.
Color as well.
So when you bought the console, you had the choice of either getting the one with the blue and the red, or you had the one of getting the sleek gray. So that was just his own choice.
Okay, I was just like, it's like I would go for the sleek gray then.
And they did that on purpose, because they felt, I actually watched an interview with the lead designer. They felt that the colored ones were a lot more fun for like party games, and they were trying to tie that in with 1-2 switch. So they felt that the market that was going more casually would end up with those, but for the more hardcore people who are just buying it for Zelda and whatever third-party games are going to come out, they gave it a sleek gray so it fits in with the rest of their setups.
Yeah. Ooh, speaking about the 1-2 switch, something I was impressed by is they've always done this since the Wii. Is they put out those gimmicky games, and 1-2 switch is what I assume would be the same thing as like Wii Sports.
They've always done it, man.
Yeah, they've always done it. So I'm looking at it, and I was like, this is gonna be just like Wii Sports. It's gonna be nothing but like gimmicks. It's not gonna really impress me. It's just showing off things. While I will say that each game is showing off different features of the console, I will say these set of games are a lot more entertaining than anything have come out on previous consoles with them. So.
I mean, I'd argue against that, but because we've even touched on this with Wii Sports, everyone had fun with Wii Sports. Like, it's a fun-ass game.
What I'm getting at, percentage-wise, I think people will be a lot more impressed overall with all the games, not just one or two of them. They won't just have one or two favorites. I'm thinking they're going to have more than just a couple of favorites. They're going to like majority of the games that come with 1-2 Switch.
Yeah. I mean, I'd hope so with the amount of games that it has. Because whereas Wii Sports was a pack-in and mostly a tech demo, 1-2 Switch is a game you have to buy outright. Though it does only cost, I think, 64 Canadian, whereas a normal title would cost 79.
Just so you know, nobody at the convention was willing to taste the cartridge.
That's unsurprising. What I found out is they actually used the most disgusting flavor known to man. It's some sort of benzene compound.
Yeah, it's a benzene compound, and the thing is, it's not just used for this. When I first heard about this chemical, is working with dogs. They sell it as a spray, and you spray things you don't want your dogs chewing on.
We have that.
And now they actually, by the way, sell it for toddlers. There's actually a company that sells it for kids as well.
Nintendo
So
just integrated outright.
Yeah, so I'm like, they must have been like, it's non-toxic. They're already using it for dogs and kids anyways.
I mean, it's a smart move, because with the exception of maybe the DS and the 3DS, they have like no real experience with having something this small as far as their consoles go. And maybe they had problems with the DS where parents would call in about choking hazards, so maybe they learned from that.
Yeah. You know, what I'm kind of worrying about is now that there are all these adults being curious and tasting it, which we don't get because you can actually smell the chemical.
Yeah.
Like I can smell. You know me, my nose does not work properly.
Yeah.
I usually can't smell. It's strong. You can smell it. So you know it's on there. Why would you bother putting this thing in your mouth? But adults are doing it. People are taste testing this to see how bad it tastes.
I mean, it's kind of stupid.
I'm waiting for an adult to choke on it. So now we'll get like a news title: adult choking hazards instead of children's choking hazards.
You know what I'm actually waiting for is a little bit morbid, but the day where we have a headline that someone had a heart attack in a public washroom while playing the Switch. Because when the Wii U came out, we made jokes about that happening in the house, but now it can happen anywhere.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be funny.
Sure as shit,
Like,
someone's
no,
gonna find a way
no,
to turn that on its head.
see, not somebody, getting a heart attack with, the fact that something bad happened in a toilet while somebody's on the Switch.
Yeah.
Not the act of something bad happening. Just like, really, you're playing the Switch when this happened in the toilet?
Yeah.
Like, it's bad enough that people spend way too much time on their phones, and me included.
Yeah.
And on your phone while in the toilet. But if people in consoles, the fact that people I know for a fact do it with the Wii U. So it's no surprise that people are probably going to do this with the Switch too.
Yeah. So, okay, so you got to play it, and you're impressed?
Yes.
Does it meet your expectations, or does it exceed them? Did it not quite match up?
Because I've only got to try the Switch and looking through it meets it. The operating system is sleek. The layout, I got to look actually not just at the game, but actually at the setup of the homepage and the screen and everything and all that, like the menus, and it's set up really nice and smooth.
Yeah, it looked like it.
So
you got
yes.
I was gonna say you actually got to play it. I attended the launch event in our city. They didn't have a kiosk, which I was hoping they would, but I guess it was just the bigger EB Games got them, or GameStops.
Yeah.
I've never been to a launch, and that's kind of why I went to this one. It was highly disappointing. and that may have just been a result of disorganization or something. But with approximately 60 to 70 people in line waiting to purchase, with me starting at the back of the line at the very moment that the doors opened, I waited 2 hours and 38 minutes to get my copy of Zelda.
Yeah. See, launches are kind of, it matters on who's running them.
Yeah. Like,
right?
I went to the midnight launch of, like, Sun and Moon, which obviously much, much smaller, but they had two lines. They had a pre-order line and they had a walk-in line. And they took the pre-order line first, and they had things ready. With this one, it was anyone in line, you are where you are. And if you're just a walk-in, we're going to give you a ticket because we have 20 consoles for walk-ins. And I don't know why it took so long. Like, I already completely paid off my pre-order, and I was the fastest person in there to get out once I finally got to the counter. And it still took like 3 minutes for her to enter all the details of my pre-order. Like, it's never taken that long before.
Yeah. Well, I'll point out, I know the old staff of the EB Games you're talking about, and they no longer work there.
Yeah.
And the people who actually put effort in that specific EB Games for launches no longer work there.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see the quality until they find something. Like, the people who, when they originally started the launches, because they don't have to do them.
Yeah.
Right. The stores have an option of not actually doing midnight launches.
Oh, this one wasn't a midnight. It was just an early opening.
Early opening. So like they used to do midnight launches at the store all the time because people put the effort in, right?
Right.
And they talked with the police to make sure everything was copacetic and running properly. They would have entertainment. They even got some of the staff even dressed up to the theme of whatever the launch was. They used to bring a couches for people to sit on sometimes.
Yeah.
And snack food for everybody, and it became like almost like a little, almost like launch party, but
it was a real event.
Yeah. And once people started abusing it, like they started having issues, and then staff left, and eventually none of the staff no longer work there. And so they just it stopped, and that's what I mean. Like, I was wondering how it was going on because I haven't been there in a long time for a launch.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an event. It was just a line that took a really long time to get through.
Well, I can tell you, and even then, they organized. The people who used to do all this, the organizing as an event, spent time actually making sure everything organized. They usually did do 2 lines, and they usually had everything set up and ready to go for the pre-orders, and everything set up ready to go for the thing, and they would have everything properly done up. So I went there once, and there was over 100 people for lunch, like well over 100 people. I think it was a Call of Duty
lunch,
and they must have had everybody in and out in half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it should be. And obviously it'll take a little longer with a console because you gotta, it's a bigger purchase decision. People might take a little longer and whatnot, but it shouldn't be 2 hours and 38 minutes for 60 to 70 transactions, most of which were already at least somewhat paid for.
Now, you want to talk about console launch mess ups? Let's talk the PS3 when it came out.
Gross.
I lined up for that. There was problems with that launch internationally, but like the one I went to one, and I was 9th in line at the store, and they only had 8, so I lined up again, thinking that's not much of an issue. That's not their fault. They didn't know there was more than 8 people lined up outside, so fine. So I go to another game, and I won't say the company's name, but they made the conscious decision, because they had so many people showing up to the lineup the next night.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't tell anybody the amount of consoles they had, to keep everybody in line, and that's exactly what they did. They had 20 consoles, and the manager was outside, and so was the staff, trying to keep everything in common. They were interviewing with CBC.
Yeah.
And Global, and they had probably almost 200 people in line, but they only had 20 consoles.
Okay, they're the worst, because at that point they're just being greedy and they're not thinking about their customers' or well-being. And at that point they're going to lose customers. So fuck them.
I was mad. Like, and a lot of people were like, I'm surprised they didn't have a small riot, but yet again, we're in Canada, so.
Yeah. Hey, we riot.
Though, if you want to hear something funny about that when I was in there, at the end of it, I was still around, because I stuck around to see if anybody just didn't show up to pick up their console, and if they were willing to still sell to me.
Yeah.
Right. He was the manager was actually like going up to everybody who was dispersing throughout that, and it was like, we have 120 gig PS3 left. Does anybody want it? The 60 gigs are sought after. People still have them, repair them to make sure they're working, because they're the only PS3 and actually Sony console now that with disc is completely backwards capable. So people love them.
Yeah.
20 gig on the other hand, everybody hates them. There was 200 people there and nobody wanted a 20 gig.
Yeah. I mean, that's when the Wii U launched, the 32 gigabyte models were completely sold out. The 8 gigabytes weren't touched. You could find a Wii U easily, but only if you got the 8 gig. And they discontinued it very quickly.
Well, same with the 20 gig for the PS3 that nobody wanted, so they just stopped making it.
Yeah, that was the comparison I was making.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny, but it's also sad when that happens. So.
Did you hear about the guy in New York who was a month early in line?
No, but it doesn't surprise me.
So, New York at the Nintendo Center, it's a thing that happens at every launch. They officially sell the very first console or game to whoever. And there was another guy, and he's like 35 now, and he's getting really tired of doing this, and he's like, I gotta pass the torch. And this other kid who got the first console was kind of, playing around with the idea and joking about it, and the guy just like handed the torch over to him. So essentially, he would be at the store every day for the entirety of the day, and then when the staff finally says, we are starting the line, he would be there first, so he would be first in line.
Yeah.
And so he got the first console, and I'm pretty sure Reggie sells it to you, Reggie Fils-Aimé of Nintendo of America.
That'd be nice.
And he was vlogging and all this other stuff. His camera died right before he got the console.
Oh, that sucks.
Painful.
Now, I've got to ask, has there been reports of anybody doing the whole smash the console thing again?
I haven't seen it, but I'm sure that's going to happen. I usually don't search for that.
I remember when they did it, they first did it with the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Like, it was a big thing. I'm sure somebody had done it before with the Xbox or something like that. But it gained really big traction with the Xbox 360 and the PS3 and then the Wii. So I'm kind of curious if anybody's done it now or if it's still big news.
I'm sure
people smashing consoles.
I'm sure someone's done it, and if any network latches onto that, it'll be news, but I don't care.
exactly.
Yeah.
That being said, like I've never heard any major launch problems with something with the PS3 because nothing has come in where something like somebody was it would be if it happened again it'd be this, it'd be somebody lining up for the Switch was stabbed for their console last night. That happened for the PS3.
That happens for like everything.
Oh, but it was like all over the place. And the funniest one I
Right.
thought for the PS3, and I would love to see this for another console launch, is two guys tried to mug two guys with the PS3 when they were walking home with two PS3s.
Yeah.
And the two muggers ended up in the hospital. I think the whole title was "Don't Mess with Nerds" and their new console.
I feel like I saw that one. Or at least
I had to
something
laugh
similar.
at that. It was funny. I'm like, because usually your idea of a nerdy person and geeky person is not somebody who can take a knife away from a mugger.
Yeah.
But you don't mess with them and their console.
Just happens to be an MMA fighter. So, okay, I've got one story from the launch. The guy in front of me, he's obviously like a massive fan. He's going to get like a sleeve tattoo of Zelda and all this other stuff. He bought the sword and the shield replica. He spent $1,400 in the last 2 days at that EB Games. Because, I mean, the day before, he bought the Pip-Boy from Fallout 4. Like, they just happened to have one, and he jumped on that. And then he got the Switch, he got the controllers, he got the carrying case, he got a stand, he got the protective screening, he got every single Zelda amiibo, he bought it on the Wii U, he got the Master Sword Edition on the Switch, he bought the regular version on the Switch, he bought like a Nintendo points card, like my fucking god.
He wanted everything.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And he was directly in front of me, and all the staff was kind of like, wow, you hold like the highest running tally. Oh my god.
Well, that would be kind of impressive.
I found it pretty funny, actually, because the lady in front of him, they were talking pretty much the whole time, but she bought the special edition and the Wii U edition. I like the special edition way more than the Master Sword edition.
Why?
I think with the Master Sword edition, the only thing you get that you don't get with the special edition is the statue, but the box is just black with like gold trim and the eye logo thing. The special edition is like, I don't know, 11 by 17 poster size kind of deal, and it's just the artwork blown up on really high quality cardboard, and it's beautiful.
That'd be nice.
Like, it just looks way better as a special edition.
From a design standpoint, I wonder how they got away with doing that. Because usually you're supposed to go more elegant as you go up and more like prestigious and that kind of stuff. And I wonder how they got away with only doing gold trim and black. Like, I get that.
I don't know. I think it might just be an aesthetic thing. Like, to me, it's stupid, but to him, it might have been like the greatest thing ever because the cover art should stay on the cover or something.
And but even then, that's something that I learned in school is usually that kind of stuff is progression. Yeah, you keep with a common theme. Yeah, you go more prestigious, but like unless you could somehow tie the black and gold trim within the special edition and the regular, it is more prestigious as a general design with gold trim and black, but it doesn't match the original what the plain edition, like the regular edition box looks like. Or from what you just told me, the special edition looks like. So it stands out, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
From the sounds of it to me. That seems like somebody was like, it should have matched. It should have been like a rhythm almost. Better looking as you go along, but still following a similar theme.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well. It was kind of funny because, I mean, I was behind this guy for 2.5 hours. I heard most of everything he said, like, not trying to listen in. But he was saying how he actually got his brother to pre-order it for him because of his work. He travels for a week, he comes home for a week, he travels for a week. And his brother's like, yeah, this thing is kind of expensive, and I don't know if you want it, but I pre-ordered it anyways, and you can pay the rest if you want. But it's this big box Zelda thing, and it was the Master Sword Edition. There was only 4 at our location, but his brother got it for him without knowing it's like the biggest deal.
Well, that's sort of how I got my PS4, so it doesn't surprise me that happened to somebody else.
Yeah.
My brother not slightly different story. My brother pre-ordered a PS4 for himself, right?
Right.
And when it came time, he was 95% short on the funds. And so he's like, I can't afford it. It's pre-ordered. I know you want it, and I know you have the money now, and you missed the pre-order because I had. Because at that time, I didn't have any money at the pre-order when the pre-orders went up.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want it? I'm like, okay. He said, I'd rather it go to you than just like them nobody pick it up and they sell it to some random.
Yeah. That's nice. I remember
So
when
worked
that
out for
happened.
us.
I have 8 minutes, so I'm gonna get through 2 things. Legend of Zelda meets all expectations and probably exceeds them. So if you want it, go get it. I gave a minor spoiler earlier, and I won't say any more because I am so spoiler free on this that going into it, I'd maybe seen the launch trailer or the unveiling trailer at E3, and that was it.
That's all I've seen so far.
So like I didn't know what enemies would be in there, what areas there are. So when my friend like calls me up and he's like, "Yo, have you been in this dungeon?" And I'm like, "God damn it, man, I didn't know about that dungeon."
Shut up, god damn it.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
It's like, and then my girlfriend's also playing it. So when she goes and lifts up a rock and finds something, I'm like, "No, spoiler. I didn't want to know that was there. I wanted to find it on my own." So I'm like extreme spoiler free right now.
You should just like not play with her then unless you want to get ahead of her.
It's been out for 2 days and I played it pretty much all of yesterday. So I already have, what was it, 18 hours in 2 days. So there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot.
More than I.
What?
You have more in that game so far in a day than I've put in 2 weeks on one of the games I'm trying to play through right now, which is Resident Evil 7.
Yep. I have less to do.
Yeah. So.
I mean, yeah. But Zelda's amazing, and the other thing was, did you see the Nindies?
The Nindies?
The Nintendo Indies. They did a short presentation on their independent developer stuff.
No, I haven't yet.
Oh my god, it looks so good. You should watch.
So worth going to watch?
Yeah, I think everyone should watch it just to see what'll come out, because like, there's a new Blaster Master game. Do you know that game from the NES?
Yeah.
Well, it's new, it looks the same, and it's freaking amazing.
Ooh, that'll be nice.
Because
no,
that was like an NES classic that just got like forgotten. And
what was I going to say? Before we go, though, I would like to bring something up too. You're speaking of games. Just so everybody knows, yeah, the 1-2 switch, not just gimmicks, it's worth getting as well.
Yeah.
On top of that, if you want to get attention, go play this in public. We found out the con, everybody wanted to see the fucking console.
Oh,
they didn't come up and say anything to us. They would stand there and watch from a distance. They're like, "Oh my god, it's a Switch."
I mean, it came out on the day of the con, so I mean, if they weren't in line to get it, they probably hadn't seen it.
Yeah. So I think they were surprised to see it.
Yeah.
There, in the back of a con. Like we weren't up front somewhere public. We were like in the back in the corner. So
yeah.
Oh, and something about Scufflewick's con. Weirdly, I don't know if he mentioned this, but he got bumped up from being they had 2 rooms,
Okay.
like 2 panels, and he was supposed to be on the smaller panel in the very back in a corner,
Right.
like very secluded. And they he met the guy running the con, and the guy's like, "No, I want you up on the main stage."
Nice.
So he got upgraded.
Good for him. I mean, he's good at talking. So if they saw that, they'd be like, "Yeah, put him up there."
He's not here to defend himself, but he asked me how I thought his panel went. Not bad, though. If you're gonna pull somebody up from the crowd onto the stage, interact with them more.
Oh.
But he did that, and he didn't interact with them much.
That's funny because the whole last recording session, he was just talking about like how interactivity is so important.
And he forgot. I think he forgot. I think he was so nervous from being up there.
Yeah.
He tries to pull off that he doesn't care and he's not nervous about things, but he does get a little nervous. So
I figured. Okay, we're gonna wrap this up in a tight bow, but really, I need to tell you about this one game from the Nindies. It's called Wargroove, and It's Advanced Wars with like a fantasy theme, and it's got people talking because there hasn't been an Advanced Wars game since like the Game Boy Advance or something, and it's amazing and it looks beautiful.
What's with them bringing back old games? It's not just them doing it. Microsoft's doing that as well. They're bringing back Halo Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same game. It's a different game, but it's like the same style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's beautiful. Go watch the Nindies.
I will. And this is where we should end, I think.
Yeah.
But, so, like, hopefully everybody who's actually stuck around to this point, aka my wife, in the video, have a good day and forward to seeing you guys next week. Remember, if you liked what you heard today, please remember to subscribe and like the video. And if you would like to hear anything particular, don't forget to comment down below. Thank you and have a nice day.